Hi, it's Helen Tarrant. Hi there. If you're starting out in commercial property and you're wondering what are the steps to start out with, well, when you're looking around like I have, looking around the streets, one of the ways is to observe a town or a suburb or an area that you're thinking of buying if it is close to you, and look at how vibrant and what businesses actually work in that town. Now, if you're doing it remotely, which means that you're actually away and you're not buying that same state or in an area where you can drive to or get to easily, then one of the things to look at is to do a bit of area research. So before you buy the property or think about putting an offer in for the property, one of the things to do is to do some area research, look at the population, look at the income level, look at whether it's high rises, whether it's house and land packages, look at whether it is an area that's gentrifying, which means that it's getting fancy and changing over time, or whether it is blue or white collar workers there. So do a little bit of research and then start looking at the properties. Now you can go on to areas like Real Commercial, Ray White, LJ Hooker, A Knight Frank, the Collier's website, all have lots of commercial property listings. Now when you look at those listings, one of the things to look at is the net rent. Now how do you know if the net rent is right for you? Well, it's the net rent that's divided by the potential purchase price, which an agent normally can give you an estimate of, that allows you to work out what the net yield is. Now in commercial property, all properties are sold on a net return, which means that it is after all outgoings and before mortgage. And the reason that is the case is because everyone's mortgage is different. Because if you're doing a full documentation loan, then you are going to be accessing a lower interest rate than someone who is doing a lease-up loan. So that's why it varies. So all commercial properties are sold on a net yield. So that's after outgoings and before mortgage. Now, once you have a look through a property, so once you looked at some listings online, you're going to make connections with the agent, and what you're going to request for is this information memorandum, or what we would call a sales brochure if you're coming from the residential space. So it's called an information memorandum because on that information memorandum, it's basically either a one-page flyer, or you can be up to 36 or 40 pages depending on how detailed the agent is going to make that flyer or information brochure, or it depends on the price point of the property. So if you're buying a $300,000 property, it may be 1 or 2 pages long. If you're buying a $3 million property, it might be 30 pages long. So it really depends on the property and what kind of information they put in there. Now, once you've got the information memorandum, you need to read through it, see all the information that it stacks up. So check for your outgoing, check for what your tenant is paying, check for the lease term. So that means that whether your tenant is on a 3-year lease, 2-year lease, whether they've got options, when the lease is expiring, and also looking at how much they're paying in terms of their outgoings. They're paying 100%, 50%, or maybe they're just paying the water and the utilities, or they're paying everything including land tax. So it's worthwhile to check that. Now if you come to the point where you think, okay, this property is going to stack up, it's in the relative yield that I need, which may be 6% or 7%, then I am going to make an offer. Remember, instead of spending a lot of time procrastinating or trying to line up all your ducks, is really, really important to make an offer as soon as possible. As soon as you get to the point where you actually have all of the information and you think that, okay, this property is going to stack up, it is definitely worthwhile to make an offer. And then your point from there is to actually get the property under contract as soon as possible, which means that once you get the property under contract, you've got a lot of time to actually spend doing due diligence and finance on that property. Now, the due diligence process comes in commercial property after you've actually put the property under contract. Now, that varies in different states, but in Queensland and certain areas of regional Victoria, regional New South Wales and regional Queensland and other states, you can definitely do that after you've got the property under contract. In Sydney, the contract is unconditional, which means that as soon as you decide to make an offer, you exchange contracts, that's it. It's unconditional and you have to settle within 42 days unless you get prior permission from the vendor to settle at another time. So now, if you've made an offer and you might have go through what we call a negotiation stage, which may last anywhere from a day if the vendor is really fast, to sometimes 2 or 3 weeks if the vendor's got a couple of other parties, or that they need to sit on it and think what other offers are there, or if it's an expression of interest, they might wait for it to close. Now, once you've got the property under offer, you should then start doing more due diligence around it. So around the tenant, around the building, around what's in the surrounding areas, look at the history, start asking some more questions about the property itself. Now, once you have the property under contract, which means that they've accepted your offer, the next step is to reach out to a finance broker and start getting your finance organized. After the finance is in progress and you've ordered a valuation, you start doing the due diligence. Now you start to order either a pest and building report or a strata report, depending on the type of property you are buying. And then from there, you're looking at going up to do an inspection if you like, or engaging someone to do an inspection. Or alternatively, if you can, the agent will also do a Zoom or face-to-face inspection for you by Zoom. So depending on how you want to access it and what you feel comfortable with, I would say if you're buying your first commercial property, I would always go and site that property, or get someone I trust and know to actually site that property. Now, once you've done that and you're happy with the property, now I always look at it as 3 points. So the tenant research, the property research, and I also look at the compliance in the area research. So the compliance is about fire, asbestos, electricals and plumbing, making sure the property is compliant. The tenant is about how the tenant is performing and the history and the business itself. Now the property is about how stable the property is in the long term for you once you purchase it, and how flexible it is to become other use if your tenant did move out. So once you've done all of those research and you're happy with it, the next stage is to go unconditional. Basically at that point, you've agreed that I'm definitely going to buy this property, the valuation matches up, my finance has been approved, and I'm happy with all of the due diligence. I may have cited the property. My next step now is that I'm actually going to settle on the property within the next 21 to 30 days. And then at that point, you actually spend more time with your solicitor and your finance person to actually help you get to the stage where you can settle. So that's loan documentation, that is any last minute searches you want to do, any adjustments to rent, anything that you want to do that during the due diligence stage that you need to tidy up, you might tidy up at this point, and then you are ready to settle. And also during this time, it might be worthwhile to look at a property manager. So when you settle, you can hand over the property management to someone else to take care of it for you, especially if you don't live in the area. It is definitely worthwhile to actually find a property manager that's local to the area, or someone that can have access to the area where they can visit your tenants 2 or 3 times a year and have a good conversation about how their business is going, so they can keep you notified if there's anything that needs to be doing on your property, or that your property is properly managed and that your tenant's paying rent and on time. Because at the end of the day, it's all about you working with your tenant hand in hand so that you can achieve the ultimate outcome where they continues to provide for you passive income in the long term. So once you settle, you've got to look at property management, and 3 months after that, I encourage you to reassess your goals, reassess your strategy, and going from there to really move forward and plan for your next commercial property purchase. So really breaking down your commercial property goal into bite-sized chunks, and then and making sure you're getting there one property at a time. So until next episode, bye for now.